Welcome to this inaugural edition of Homemade Tools. We're going to start it off with one of the tools I use quite a bit here. And if you're like me, you like saving a bit of money on making tools rather than buying things. When I'm building guitars, there's a lot of tools that come into play, and quite often there's jigs that you have to make, and it's just easier for me sometimes to make it and then not have to pay or wait for something a bit more professional to come in, but I still get really good results from it once I learn how to use it. So today we're going to look at this thicknessing jig of mine. This I use a lot for thicknessing braces, for example, for an acoustic guitar, or for making kumiko, or for making essentially wood that's of a precise thickness and width as well. Length, I can always cut it on something else. But let's say we have this piece here and we want to break it down to halfway. We like the thickness of it this way, but we just want it to be about half that thickness. And we want it to be straight all the way across here. And that's where this thicknessing jig comes in place, comes in use. For the thicknessing jig, we'll look at that really quickly. When I made this, I also made this little key, which is just an Allen key with some ash epoxied into the key, so it's just easy to use. And another thing I need to use this is a small square, I forget what these are called, one of these guys, one of the small ones. You can use the big ones, but the small one's easier to use. So let's take a look at the inside here before we look at how to use it. Really simply, this is 3 pieces of MDF in the middle here that were stacked together. They're, I believe, 3/4 inch. And then on the side here, we also have some oak flooring that I found, and it has a nice rib down the middle, which to me looks like it would be a nice track. And sure enough, it did work pretty well. There's 2 tracks, one on either side of it. And with it, I'm able to go up and down, or adjust the height of my thicknessing to about, I think, 5 mils to about 25 mils. So this is the flooring here. Pretty simple stuff. I didn't have to do anything on it, actually. I think I just evened out the side here with a shoulder plane to make sure it was nice and flat. And then on the side of the jig itself, I have all these insert nuts here. And also just a stop block here to make it easier so that things don't go flying around. So that's the same on both sides here. There we go. So that's the construction of this piece here. It would probably be a good idea to finish everything as well, but I never got around to it, and I don't see any problem coming out of it. Also, I flattened the MDF to make sure it was a nice flat surface. You don't want any bumps in there because that'll transmit. So we have a brace stock here, which is 23 mils about. So let's bring it down to, I don't know, let's say 15 here. This is 23. So what I do is I put 15 millimeters on my combination square here, and I'll lock it in place. And then with my key as well, I can come and set up the thicknessing jig. And the way I do that is I put the combination square on the track, and then press down until I feel it hit the bottom of the jig. And then I'll just sort of tighten it, most of the way there. There, so it can still move a little bit, but maybe it's hard to move. There we go. That's good. And I don't tighten it all the way yet, because I'm going to come back on it in a few seconds. Next, I'll do the other side. Bottom it down. That's good. Same thing. Put it most of the way down. And here I'll come back and just double check. Essentially, when you're raising one side and then the other side, you can get some errors in it. So I do it a few times so there's less error. So I've done it twice here on both sides. That's good. And the one in the middle is just insurance. And we'll do the same on the other side here. And the way this jig works is that it's spaced for my Stanley hand planes for typical number 4 and number 5, which I have quite a few of. And they just run down the track and they bring the piece down until it's ready to go. Oh, that slipped quite a bit. There we go. And the way this one works is I've seen a lot of people put it in a vise before, but I don't have a vise on my setup here, so I just run it against one of the dogs in my workbench. Let's use this one here. So I just got one of my bench dogs. And actually, let's put it this way so you can see. And so there we go. We have our jig set up. We're pressing up against one of these dogs. Let's do this one here. One of the dogs. And we have our piece of brace stock. I have a typical number 5 set up here. Number 4. And I also have one set up as a scrub plane. One thing about this setup, sometimes you might have to shim the side of it so that the piece doesn't go flying. Well, let's see what this looks like. You also want to look at the grain. So the grain there is falling, and I want it to be rising so that I don't get too much tear out. That's pretty good. And then the scrub plane goes very quickly. And when I get about a mil or a mil and a half away, I'll switch over to one of the other planes. One more shot there. Then I've got this plane. This one here, I really want to make sure that the setup is nice on it. That'll give me the nice square cross finish on this brace. Right there. It's a little light. There you have it. That's a brace. That should be about 15 mils. Let's have a look here. Let's see where we go. Yeah, 14.9 right there. 14.9 over there as well. Yeah, so that's good. And with braces anyway, they get radius and they get contoured, so that's not a big deal. So yeah, that's my thicknessing jig that I use with my hand planes. I've got other hand planes that I can use with this, but these are the main two. As you can tell, I get very thick shavings off the scrub plane, which is great. It's like 1 millimeter or 0.5 millimeter, and then I get kind of smoothing plane or something kind of very thin shavings on this one here, and you end up with something that's the right dimension. Now, of course, I could do the same thing on the other side and bring that down to size, and then it's on the shooting plane to finish up the length to square as well. There you go. So that's the thicknessing jig with the combination plane, the bespoke key, the jig itself, the planes, the bracing stock, and the way you butt it up against this right here. We'll see you next time.